of learnerships and other skills programs. TVET colleges also offer occupationally directed programs working together with the SETAs. We are increasing these opportunities on this front, but I have already given the numbers that TVET colleges, for instance, have set aside 85,900 such study opportunities. The SETAs will be providing a further 37,423 learning programs in the form of what I have already outlined, the apprenticeships, bursaries, and learnerships. And we've provided a further breakdown there. We are also increasing infrastructure, providing infrastructure. There is progress in building the 12 new TVET colleges already for the 3 sites in Tabazimbi, Gadla A, and Bambanani. The constructors are already on site, and then the awarding of contracts to successful bidders for the remaining 13 sites will be completed during the first quarter of this year. Now let me turn to NSFAS. One of the most successful schemes established by government to assist students from poor, disadvantaged families with academic ability is the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, which provides loans and bursaries to students at all 26 public universities and 50 public TVET colleges throughout the country. This year, NSFAS will be funding 205,000 first-time entering and continuing eligible students at universities, and 200,000 students at TVET colleges in 2014 by providing student loans and bursaries totaling 9.5 billion rands. In 2014, NSFAS provided student loans and bursaries totaling over 8.3 billion, which, by the way, excluded the once-off allocation that we made last year of 1 billion rands for the servicing of the 2013 shortfall of 700 million and 2014 shortfall of 300 million. You may want to come back and ask questions here, but let me just try and clarify what we're saying here. Is that last year we had from the fiscus and other resources, donors and students who are paying back, we had 8.3 billion. This year we are at 9.5 billion. If we subtract the 1 billion, which was a once-off thing for last year to deal with the acute shortfall that we were faced with. So NSFAS continues to increase, which shows government's commitment to ensure that we support as many students, if not most, of those who come from poor backgrounds who qualify to be at university or college. In addition to the funds that NSFAS received from the funds voted by Parliament, I'm explaining now the component of this 9.5 billion. The National Skills Fund makes further annual allocations aimed at funding the full cost of study towards critical skills programs most needed for the growth of the economy. Now, it's also important to explain further here. Because of the demand for NSFAS, there's been a tendency for universities to split their allocation to more students than often what had been planned for, thus leading to a situation that many students are not funded for the full cost of study. But the National Skills Fund support for students in scarce skill areas like engineering, certain health sciences, etc., those students are funded to the full. 100% tuition, accommodation, and food. In essence, we do have now pockets of 100% funding for poor students in particular areas. This funding is made available through the financial aid offices in universities, and students wishing to make use of these bursaries are advised to enroll for critical skills, which I have said include science, commerce, health sciences, engineering, and so on. As a department, we are committed to expanding access and success in our institutions for students who have special needs. At our TVET colleges, for example, government pays 80% of the program cost of the student's choice, with an additional allocation being made depending on the type and severity of the disability. In addition, NSFAS has earmarked 69.3 million rands in the 2015 academic year to provide financial aid to disabled students in universities. We're very proud of this because this is our focused attention in assisting students with disabilities, and from this bursaries also they get the assistive aids that they need depending on the nature of disability and on the nature of the assistance needed. We have continued, by the way, with our Apply Now campaign. This is a matter that we hope we could have an effective partnership with the media. Sometimes I watch television, students just casually saying, I'm so glad I passed, I'm going to look for a place, but I hadn't applied, you know. I think that we really do need media to assist us, to help us, we partner. To say that you can't be taken at a college or a university unless you have applied. If we are not strict about this, we are going to continue to have unnecessary problems. It's like you must know you can't drive a car if you don't have a driver's license. Nevertheless, we have continued to reach out. By the way, working with the Department of Basic Education, last year we reached grade 9 to 12 learners in 6,812 public secondary and combined schools in the country, distributing the Apply Now booklet, with a particular focus being on township and rural schools. This campaign, of course, complements our career guidance campaign. The department is also operating the Central Application Clearinghouse, CATCH, in short. We are running this again once more in 2015. And the site has been active from the 2nd of January. Basically, in short, CATCH, as you may remember, is a step towards establishing a national central application system, where students will have to apply to a central point and outline their preferred institutions that they want to go to. And then we forward their names for those institutions for them then to select the students they want. And with this system, which we still hope DG to introduce in full, is it next year or 2017? 2017. But this, in the meantime, what it also does is that those students who had not applied to any institution or who have not been taken can then be able to approach CATCH, and they drop their details there, and then we work with universities that for those who have got outstanding spaces after they had after they had accepted students, they can then find those students in the CATCH system. This also helps, by the way, to minimize, if not do away completely with walk-ins. Also, CATCH, we have improved it now. It's also now providing career guidance services because we regard this as a department as very important. And they get offered free career advice. As Minister of Higher Education, moving towards concluding my input, I have no doubt that the impact of these initiatives and campaigns create awareness of and provide useful information about career and funding options for post-school education and training. I want to take this opportunity to urge those who have not passed their matric to access all the sources of relevant information that the department has created specifically for them to choose from a range of options available within the TVET system. We want to say to them, you have no reason to despair. Explore all the opportunities that are there. You possibly may find one that suits you. And also to emphasize this, another matter that would really plead with the media also, that we partner with them. Because we already partner with the SABC formally through our career guidance centers, through their radio stations, is that the future of our youth does not only lie in going to university or in going to university first time you finish matric. You can still access meaningful post-school opportunities and meaningful careers, by the way. And at another time, you can be able, if you want to proceed to university, be able to do that. This is very important in order for us to really break away from the cul-de-sac we put our youth and ourselves as a country into by emphasizing only one route. So our department therefore welcomes the class of 24 into the post-school education and training system, where learning and growth can take place in our 26 universities, 50 TVET colleges, and 21 SETAs, as well as the other institutions that I spoke about, like agricultural colleges and nursing colleges. Thank you very much, Kwanyana.
Thank you very much, Minister. At least we all have copies of the statement for proper extrapolation of any area to ask any question. I will therefore proceed to ask the colleagues from the media to ask questions. I will start from here and later I will link up with with the Cape Town. Now you have to be on the music, on the Cape Town side, and therefore get also the same questions. I can see the hand already. You will then identify yourself, your name, and the media house you are coming from. That's a standard procedure. And then we will assess whether is it sufficient, or we can check one or two follow-ups and therefore check with the Cape Town and therefore close. Can I observe the hands? I note the hands. At the back I can see you follow. It seems like we're having two hands right now. Let me give you the opportunity.
Good morning, Minister Panel. Barry Bateman, Eyewitness News. It's two questions. Firstly, related to timing of this particular briefing, and you're referring to study opportunities. How many of those are actually still opportunities, considering there is a registration process and a whole of administration to go through before a student is actually accepted? So shouldn't this briefing had happened perhaps sometime towards the last quarter of last year, that the opportunities would be available in the next year? And the other question is the concern surrounding accommodation available for students. I think it's a lead in one of our newspapers today that there is a significant shortage. And we see it every year, particularly being in Pretoria with the Tshwane University of Technology. We're going to have students, the one year I think they were housed at the City Hall, for example. What is being done in that respect to accommodate students that come from far and wide to the city to pursue their studies?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Colleagues at the back? Yeah, yourself. Yeah.
Minister Kolganeski from the Business Day. Sorry, from Cape Town side, we couldn't hear that because he was not using the microphone. I think that was Barry Bateman, right?
What?
Okay. No, hear what he was saying. He was not using the microphone.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Can we be assisted then? Is there no roving mic or something?
It's for the minister, I mean, so.
Is this one not working?
No, mine is working. They say they can't hear because
That question.
from here. Okay.
If you can just switch, okay, it's on, yeah.
Mr. Colgan from the Business Day. Just with regards to NSFAS, does the department have a figure they can give us, even if it's a bit speculative, on just how much money they think they'd need if they wanted to cover all students in need? And the second part of the question, last year we saw a lot of universities getting shut down due to student protests over funding and allocation, particularly TVET, but there were others. Just on that matter, the students' demand for participation and clarity on just how the universities allocate this NSFAS. Can you please get some sort of comment on that? If there's any discussion, for example, with student representative organizations. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yeah, those were the two sets of hands. Maybe I will allow the minister just to respond. Possibly there will be a follow-up after that. Yeah.
Can I just ask first, with your permission, for Chief to talk specifically about accommodation, who is Chief Director in our department, and then I don't know, DG, between yourself and the CEO of NSFAS, who can talk about how much money NSFAS needs. Then I'll come in to answer the other questions, if that's okay. Chief, introduce yourself as well.
Thank you, Minister. I'm Matlumi Mabizela. I'm the Chief Director in the Department of Higher Education and Training.
And we are not a traditional leader yet.
No.
Yeah, okay.
Not yet. Right. Yes, on the question on student accommodation, the department has spent quite some amount of money in the infrastructure development at the universities. There is a backlog. You will remember that the task team that the minister established a few years ago established that we have a backlog of, we've got about 21% of the students that we accommodate at the universities. So in the past 3-year cycle, ending 31st March of this year, the department allocated 1.6 billion rand for construction of student accommodation at the universities. And 1.4 billion rand of that amount went to the historically disadvantaged institutions, mostly that are rural and do not have, students who go to those institutions rely on accommodation offered by those institutions. And in this cycle that I'm talking about, ending 3 years in the next financial year, and again in a 3-year cycle, to accommodate, to build infrastructure to accommodate students. There is a backlog, there will still be a backlog, but at least there is that which is being done by the department. And of course the institutions are putting their monies as well in the infrastructure development for student accommodation. I hope that satisfies your questions.
Maybe just to add a few, there are also initiatives that we have embarked upon as a department with quite a number of other entities with a view of releasing funds for the rollout of student accommodation. For instance, a PIC, DBSA, and other various sources together with the institutions, because the challenge here in the main is with the institutions that are off balance sheet, which do not have sufficient funds to pledge as collaterally in terms of rolling out this infrastructure in the medium to long term. And those engagements have resulted into some institutions rolling out the building of accommodation in quite a number of them at the present moment. So our approach is not only looking at what government can make available at the present moment, but what are other creative mechanisms in the market and the economy as a whole that is looking at pooling funds that should be utilized for the rollout of infrastructure, including teaching, learning, and research facilities, because it's not only about student accommodation. So I think it's quite important that those initiatives are actually acknowledged and reinforced. Thanks.
Yeah, maybe before we come to the other question, DG, I just want to add also that on this accommodation issue, in many ways we are victims of our own success as this government, because we grew in numbers faster than we can build the infrastructure. The university sector has grown tremendously since 1994. But also, in order to try and maximize what we already have, inadequate as it is, we've also promulgated student accommodation policy, which, for instance, includes, amongst other things, prioritizing accommodation for first-year students, amongst other things. Because we noticed that if we can use accommodation creatively by supporting especially first years where the failure rate is very high, we can be able at least to achieve, make a difference even if we do not have our ideal, because our ideal accommodation is for 80% of the students who require accommodation, because not everybody requires university-owned accommodation, let me put it that way. That at least 80% of those who require university-owned accommodation, we are at least able to accommodate them. Maybe we want to tackle NSFAS about what's the ideal amount of money we need if NSFAS was to support everybody, teacher.
Yeah, thank you very much. The CEO is here and he has got the purse with him, so he will be able to divulge, some of the aspects. But what I think is important in respect to this question, because every time and again, when we are looking at it, we just look at how much could be made available, overlooking some of the deficiencies in the system that we are working on to actually correct robustly with institutions, colleges, NSFAS, as well as the department. Because we believe the money which is readily available there at the moment, it being properly and legitimately used, it can cover quite a lot. One, there are a number of deficiencies that we have picked up in the system. One, there are some institutional weaknesses where students who are not legitimate, who are not supposed to be legitimate beneficiaries of the scheme, are actually getting into the scheme by providing false information, collaborating with some officials, and at times their parents as well. That is cheating in the system. The second one is the question of corrupt practices that in a number of institutions that we have picked up. All of these in the main have got a tendency of benefiting a large chunk of students who are coming from well-to-do families. And this practice has a tendency of affecting those who are supposed to benefit legitimately in the system. That is why at the present moment we are rolling out a comprehensive forensic investigation in order to determine the extent and the veracity of this practice in the entire system, with a view of developing systems that would respond quite better. And the new technology that NSFAS is introducing, amongst other things, is also looking at responding to those areas. So there was a study that was conducted through a ministerial task team on this question, which came up with a ballpark figure that perhaps if we theoretically take a view that we want to fund everybody in the system, but that everybody would include some other categories of students who are not the necessary beneficiaries according to the policy at the present moment. I think it's important to underscore that point. I think it amounted at about 47 billion. That is in 2010. I don't know how much would that be according to today's figures. Maybe the CEO may like to elaborate some few other details, on the matter. Thanks.
Good morning. Thanks, Minister and DG. Let me answer the second question on NSFAS about the administrative processes and the involvement of student leadership. We have worked with the universities to ensure that there is transparency on how they determine the decisions on funding. The decisions are still management decisions, but we have encouraged our universities to ensure that there is information that flows to the student leadership. They know how much money the university has received and how has it been allocated to the students on campus. And also on the central application process, we're also engaging with student leaders to inform them of how the decision has been made on which students have been funded and which students have not been funded. Just to top up on the DG's answer on the funding, the proposal that the department had prepared for these standing committee on appropriations on the funding for the next 3 years was for 51 billion rand over a 3-year period. That's the amount of money that theoretically would say would be able to assist the students that are in need. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Let me then come back to the rest of the questions. But let me just add on the NSFAS matter and the issue that the DG has been talking about of a forensic audit. We're doing that, but at the same time we are acutely aware that criteria for qualifying for a NSFAS loan is still quite low, because it's 122,000 family income per annum, 122,000 rand. It's about 10,000 rand that we support families who are earning 10,000, less than 10,000, or up to 10,000 rands a month. Now, it doesn't mean that a family whose total family income is 15,000 rands is a rich family, or even 20,000 a month for that matter. Also, the criteria at the moment does not look at how many students, because in some families you may have 2 students at university or college. So at the same time as we are doing this forensic, we are also embarking on exploring possibilities of creating a loan system that will cater for what we normally refer to as the missing middle. It's called the gap market in housing. People who do not qualify for so-called RDP housing, but at the same time they don't get given bonds by the banks. We have the same situation here in higher education, that we have got students whose parents do not qualify for NSFAS, yet they are not rich to be able to even, by the way, qualify for an educational loan from the bank. So we are looking into that matter of where can we get funding in order to be able to increase the numbers of people who can be able to support their own children. Because part of the cheating, by the way, we are not reinforcing it by any means, has got to do with some of the students. They don't come from rich families, but they don't qualify. So they will try all sorts of means to actually try and get money. But also we must not forget this, which is also important. Before 2008, NSFAS only supported university students. After that, NSFAS is supporting students from TVET colleges, which is a huge difference that this has made to us as a country in terms of rediverting some of the resources into mid-level skills, supporting students who are pursuing mid-level skills, including artisans and so on, and breaking away from this bias path that is only biased towards universities. Perry, maybe you have a point that if we could have this press conference in September, October, and so on. The fact of the matter is we do need to have this press briefing with matric results, having looked at the matric results. That's why we normally do this press conference at this time, because we have to have exact but the fact that we do not make a press conference before the end of the year does not mean that we do not already have information. Because we already, by the end of the year, have enrollment plans with the universities. We normally finished, done with that. But, of course, you can't be precise until also the matric results are out. Then, sometimes it requires that we might say to institution A, why don't you adjust in terms of your intake, maybe into particular programs, given the need to respond to what has actually come out. That is why we think that, in fact, you wouldn't need one instead of the other. Maybe you would need both, that for us to say before the end of the year, this is how much space is. Because we can, but that would be projections, and what we have agreed upon with the universities. We have,
maybe, Minister, the other point, I think, in relation to when are we communicating? We have packaged our communication with students and society for the all year round. The focus in the main before this time is on career guidance, which is ongoing for the whole year round, and Apply Now campaign. It doesn't mean there is nothing that we are doing in relation to those students who are doing matric in a particular academic year. There's a lot of work in these two areas that are actually I've just mentioned, including assistance quite actively through CATCH, as the Minister highlighted in his presentation of the press statement. So I think it's important to underscore all those activities that culminate into this one. Thanks, Minister.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we are always communicating through our SABC partnership. 10 radio stations, all African languages and Afrikaans. Usually around September, we are emphasizing things like what spaces are likely to be there in what area. So there is that communication. Part of the problem, by the way, if we keep quiet now, you don't give us peace as the media. You say, are we going to know? And also to correct other perceptions or misperceptions sometimes about capacity of the system. Now, the last thing, Carl, that you asked is about engagement. In November, we had a very intensive meeting with the Vice-Chancellors through their organization, Higher Education South Africa, to look at the beginning of this year and what the challenges may be. We are also now going to be meeting with the student formations to have a thorough discussion with them. As the DG was saying, by the way, these are not the first meetings. We've had engagements already last year to engage on a whole range of issues that affect the system. We are then going to be meeting with the students and also emphasizing the need to engage meaningfully and try to make sure that we don't have the kind of destabilization that we are talking about. With HISA, for instance, we identified some of the things that lead to protests, which could have been avoided. For instance, timeous communication in a college to say how many students qualify for NSFAS. That's very important, because sometimes students go on a demonstration on the basis that no information has been provided. So we are trying very hard so that in the end we make sure that no one wants to abuse the system for whatever opportunistic reasons, and emphasizing the fact that, by the way, disruption of lectures we should try and avoid this at all costs, because time lost is never recovered, by the way. That's a scientific fact. You might say we've tried certain things to assist, to help, to recover. Time that is lost is never recovered. That's a fact. So we are trying to emphasize that to students as well, that you can't just easily go for a week or even a day and for 2 weeks disrupting lectures and all that because we are wanting to make a point. So we are continuing with these engagements, as the teacher was saying, all year round, but even more so at this point in time.
Thank you very much, Minister. I can see, I've always thought there would be an appetite after your responses. Madam Guardian, and there's a colleague at the back there. Maybe let's just check if there's any other hand so that we can just conclude in this house and then cross to Cape Town and see what they can say. If there's any hand, let's just observe it so that we just conclude in this house. And I'm taking those two hands. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. The two new universities, the one in Mpumalanga and Salt Lake University, are still taking, quite marginal numbers, compared to all other universities. Why is that? Are we not missing, an opportunity to, increase numbers through them, or when should we expect the two universities to start, taking, good numbers as well?
Yeah.
Sipho Masumbuka for the Times newspaper. Minister, out of the number of spaces that you have reviewed as available at universities, out of the number of spaces that we have reviewed as available at universities, are you able to tell us how many of these are for medicine, looking at our challenge of the shortage of doctors? And second question, you have raised a serious concern with regards to the steep fees that are charged by the universities and that this needs to stop. How are you going to tackle this, and how are you expecting the universities to survive if they cannot charge the fees that they think they will serve their financial needs to survive? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Yeah.
Can we not take Cape Town?
Maybe that's
Before we answer.
Okay. I can see in the if we were to having two colleagues there, can we check in Cape Town? Do we have any questions?
No, at the moment we don't have.
Oh, okay. No, thanks.
They are saturated by the ANC rally on Saturday. All right, let me. Bongan, maybe did you with your permission? I don't know. We should ask Angela on the. Before I ask Angela, I must say this. I wouldn't call marginal the numbers. I would call them small. I wouldn't call them marginal because I think it's very important that the institutions are continuing to take students that ordinarily would have really battled maybe some of them. But Angela, have you got the exact details, including the growth trajectory of the two new universities?
Thank you very much, Minister. I agree with you, Minister, that it's not marginal if you really think of where we've started. And one of the factors that determine our growth in the two new universities is the infrastructure development projects that we have currently being initiated. And the first project started actually in 2014 in September. We start actually digging the trenches to start building the new buildings. And also taking into account that we are utilizing current buildings and facilities within the two provinces, which is the old NIE building and which is the old agricultural college. By the way, the agricultural college is now incorporated into the new University of Mpumalanga, and therefore we have now that space available. It also coincides with the application of new programs. So what the universities are doing currently is actually applying to the CHE to get permission to offer new programs. So we have to manage the infrastructure building in line with the growth of the students, in line with the application of new programs together to enable the growth. The major growth will take place in 2016-17 when some of those buildings are being completed.
Do you have the numbers for medical students for this year?
Minister, I've just quickly asked my person to get the exact number, so I'll communicate if they still need it. Give me a few minutes, please.
Okay. All right, Moa. No,
Sorry, Minister, I've just got it. So the new place is available for the MBCHP is 1,450, plus minus.
First years?
First years.
Okay, including the new medical school. How many in Cuba? 2,000?
That includes the 8 current medical schools, Minister. The University of Limpopo Medical School in Polokwane will only open its door in 2016.
Yes, okay, okay. Sipo, are you happy? Yeah. By the way, you must bear in mind that much as you are correct about being concerned with medical students, there are many other areas of scarce skills that we also need to attend to. The matter of fees at universities, you are raising an important matter. DG, I hope you noticed that the President raised this matter on Saturday in his January 8 statement, expressing concern that we may be chasing a moving target by increasing NSFAS, but it all gets gobbled up by high university fees. That's a very important and legitimate concern that the President and the ANC in that instance were raising. But also at the same time, the President raised an important matter that we are funding university education is what, 1.4% of GDP. Now that's low. Even by African standard, we are below average. Now we have already agreed with the vice chancellors of universities in particular that we are going to have a detailed discussion on this matter, including what is it that is driving the high costs of higher education in our country. Because there are a whole lot of variables that they raise, which we'll discuss. Like, for instance, the exchange rate, the price of oil, in one way or the other, sometimes has an impact. You know, because also we import books, by the way, when we are talking about the exchange rate.
And equipment.
And equipment that we import, not export, that we import, that universities require. They normally argue, the vice chancellors who said we are going to have a discussion about this, that as a result of that, higher education inflation is often higher than the country's inflation because of those considerations. But we've put this matter on the agenda. We are happy that the President raised it, but we've actually put it on the agenda that we will actually have to discuss that, including interrogating the amount by which universities increase fees and why the difference, where there are differences between universities. But they have also, of course, raised this thing, which we agree with them, that we as a country, we do have a challenge. We do need to increase the amount of money that we use to actually support our higher education system. So we will be able to brief you as we progress on this matter, but it is a matter that we are dealing with. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Minister. I would assume that there's no, what would not be surprising anyone if we conclude this just briefly. I can see that there's a line there. There are no full up hands.
There are other hands.
No, no.
No, let me just, by the way, address one thing, teaching. That Bongani was addressing. Between Angela and Chief, they should be able to tell us, because I think it's important, just in one line. What's a 5 or 10-year projection in terms of the new university? Because the figures may look small now, but in terms of 5 to 10-year projection, they are going to give us something. Maybe if we can share that with the media, that would be helpful.
Thank you very much, Minister. The projection, we have a 2020 plan. So that's where we are currently. So then we would have at Stilbaai University about 5,000 students. And then in Mpumalanga, we are trying to reach 15,000, but it is for that time approximately at between 8,000 to 9,000, depending if the infrastructure projects and development and the buildings are on track during those years.
Okay. I hope, Bongan. Yeah, remember, universities are never built in a day. Because we need, apart from physical infrastructure, you also need personnel. You need lecturers, professors, and all that. All what I've heard, Angela, I don't know when we share this with the media, is that the first students at these two universities have done very well in terms of the pass rate. So we are very happy about that. Thank you.
Can we request them to
Thank you very much, Minister.
Sorry, Ngonya, just if you look at the Annexure A, Annexure B, I think if the media can actually assist us in covering Annexure B in particular, because it's an important information to the students out there. Annexure A, it's mainly established, systems, universities, colleges, the reference point. It's known, throughout the country. But when it comes to the question of seekers, there are still some difficulties. So it's an important information in regard to the question of the available opportunities in the space of the sector education and training authorities. I'm not trying to impose, but just to make a humble appeal, especially in the new year. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much. Thank you.
I have a mad program. I have a meeting now. When I finish here, I must dash. I've got meetings till about 8 o'clock, and thereafter I go to Justice Malala show. So by today is plus interviews in between,
You don't need me there.
No.
Yeah, I saw in the diary something like WEF. I mean, are you going there?
World Economic Forum? No.
I don't know why.
I don't need that snow.
No. There aren't any trips this month, eh? There's no trips coming out this month.
Not that I'm aware of. Unless between her and Spongile, I don't know. They're thinking of no.
Okay. You know, I'm going to Cuba this year.
Is it higher education this year?